My grandma could move mountains. She took the earth and turned it into art. When her hands got busy holding babies and grandbabies, they became her art. Then cooking and baking became her art. My grandma had fiery red curls and a long list of vagabond artist suitors. She laughed and loved even more than she worked. She could laugh about absolutely anything. She had been hurt and protected others fiercely. She fought for justice in big arenas and small. Most of all, she believed in progress.
Well, I'm Claire's brother. Claire's older brother by about 2 years. My name is Irving Ames, and I reside in Hartsdale, New York. Our father was artistic. He had touch. He that he had a small retail furniture store when he came here to the States, and I remember how carefully he would treat a piece of furniture that had been sold, and make sure it had no scratches on it. He would touch up the scratches with some wax and with various pigments, so that you never know there was ever a scratch present. And I remember seeing him do that and admiring that. Ironically, Claire got involved with what was called the lost wax process in Italy. You may know that. And that was a technique she went to Italy to study.
After studying art at Cooper Union in New York City, my grandmother received a Fulbright Award to study sculpture in Italy. In 1953, she moved to Florence. In 2022, I did the same to find out more about her experience as a woman artist in the 1950s, a time she rarely spoke about. First, I met up with my brother and sister in Milan.
I'm not in a rush. I don't need to be rushing.
Oh my God, wow.
I used right now incorrectly.
Oh, Charlie. I'm so relieved.
Is that better?
Oh my God. Like you came out here and you're like dressed, you know, when you're
I'm sorry. I see how that came across.
No, it's okay. It's okay.
Is it just feelings of excitement? Are you like nervous at all?
I'm not nervous. No, I mean, I think, I miss Grandma, and it would have been like really nice to kind of do this trip while she were still alive, so we could take pictures and talk to her about it. And I don't think she would have gone with us. She would have been like, oh, I've been there, done that. I don't really need to go again. But I think she would have enjoyed seeing our pictures and telling us stories and things like that. So that's a little bit sad to think about. I feel like we need to be very careful with this.
Oh, yeah, please be careful.
Did you tape this or she taped this?
She taped it.
So this is important for her to save.
It was well used at the time.
Well, I was guessing that she might have taped it later. But I guess this tape looks pretty old.
Yeah, I might take up the whole table.
Oh, should we turn it? Wow. Well, I guess we're not looking at this part really. And this part as much.
Oh, she went down there too. You don't have to fold all the parts. No, keep the top.
No, I
part.
wanted to bring this closer so you could see it. Well, so it looks like she was drawing on here, but she didn't want it to mess up the aesthetic of the map or something. It's you can see it's pencil.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's cool to think about like grandma just traveling around. Like I'm curious about like who she was traveling with, or if she went by herself, and um, I guess they were driving. Was she driving? Someone else driving? Sort of like picturing that. It's a little bit hard to picture because she was much younger, so it's hard to like imagine what she was like exactly at that time. But.
Next, we headed to Florence where my grandma studied and lived.
Can I meet you back here in like 10 minutes?
Yes. Can you just tell me what you were saying about the war thing?
Maybe a lot of people were displaced from the war, and then so they were taking up a lot of the temporary housing. It was maybe hard to find a place to be.
How do you feel looking at it? I feel kind of emotional, but I'm compartmentalizing as I do.
I mean, I understand that grandma lived here and she was here, but it's hard for me to like feel that.
Yeah.
I think partially because we knew her at such a different time of her life, and she was much younger, obviously, when she was here. It's hard to picture it because we never like saw her in her youth.
What'd you get?
Thanks for indulging me.
Yeah.
Well, I was saying like grandma might have like felt uncomfortable being in the other neighborhood in like a post-war fascist country,
You know, that makes sense.
and maybe she came over here to like have something a little bit more familiar because she grew up in a very Jewish neighborhood.
I wonder if it was more.
Like she was in basically like lived in Lower East Side her whole life.
Yeah.
And up until this point, right?
Yeah, she was always surrounded by Jews.
So
Well, I guess I didn't really think about it because she never was like, I don't know, she didn't even want like a Jewish.
but she always had a menorah.
It also, in that situation, it doesn't matter how you experience Judaism, it's what people see you as. So,
Yeah,
like,
that's
if the
true.
people know that she's Jewish, it wouldn't matter of how religious she was.
Yeah.
Well, and there still is a comfort for being around like Jewish food and people
Yeah.
probably speaking Yiddish, you know?
Especially if coming from the Lower East Side.
So we were wondering if like maybe she chose this because it was close to a synagogue and, you know.
I don't think that she necessarily even went in the synagogue.
But it was a like Jewish neighborhood.
Yeah. She didn't have a bat mitzvah.
No, but didn't Uncle Irv?
Yeah, didn't they not have like
I think
bat mitzvahs in her family?
I don't think so.
bat mitzvahs.
They had for boys.
Mm.
My name is Alan Tabachnik, and Claire Ames Leven was my mother-in-law. Being part of the family since the 80s and being around her and the house, just seeing her, the old house, seeing how many works of art she had, that to her it was just like, yeah, this is stuff I did. She
Yeah.
really downplayed, but that's so long ago. Yeah, but with paintings and sculptures and drawings and puppets and just so many different things that were really artistic and amazing. And to her it was like, yeah, I did that. I'm gonna make dinner now. I was really that kind of set me up for really appreciating art more, and the material goods, and I really appreciate her really diverse skill set in so many different mediums, which I never would have thought about before. I mean, she hadn't been my mom. So, and I was just surprised how she didn't like, if it was me, I'd like say, look what I did, look what I made.
Yeah.
But she really downplayed all that stuff. And it was really amazingly impressive, all the stuff that she produced.
Why do you think she kind of didn't really like talk about it or like downplayed it?
I never knew. I mean, I asked her multiple times. Well, I asked her why she stopped doing art. And she wouldn't really talk much about it. Well, I had the kids and I had stuff to do, and I'm going to make dinner. She did not like to talk about, why she stopped,
Mhm.
Doing the art. I don't know. It's an interesting question.
Okay, so mom's hands, grandma's hands were all, to me, like more like a man's hand. Because they were so strong and like bony, like big boned and muscular and strong. I always just thought, like, I think of her hands and her ability to like do things with her hands, like the sculpting, the cooking, like, oh, and she didn't mind getting dirty. Like, that's one thing I didn't inherit, that I don't like getting my hands dirty. I wear gloves when I garden, but she loved, like she loves getting all into it, licking it and
Okay. But then I have sad news about grandma's sculptures. Apparently, like, they got in touch with the archives, and they kept all the sculptures from, that time, and specifically when she was there, like 1953 into 54 or whatever, 1953. They kept them all in the basement. So like her sculptures were there in the basement. And they, have a record of her, I think. And, but unfortunately in the 60s, there was a flood, like a big flood, and it destroyed all the sculptures in the basement.
Oh,
Yeah,
that's sad.
I know.
Yeah, it would be nice if they had if they had like pictures of the art that was down there, or
They might. I don't know.
I feel a little deflated to think that all grandma's art was in a basement that got flooded and then everything got tossed out.
Yeah, I know.
That's kind of a, if it's all gone, it's it's a bummer that ended that way.
Yeah.
But I think if grandma was around, she'd say, well, I made it. I enjoyed it. It was good. I moved on.
As I talked to more family members, I grew increasingly curious. Why did my grandma not pursue art professionally? I turned to letters written to her for an answer. I read these letters to my siblings while we were in Italy. Dear Claire, I must disagree with you on art sales. Painting and exhibiting, or selling, are part of the same thing. Painting is meant to be shown and must be sold for the health of the artist. The artist is better off materially and spiritually when his work is not gathering dust. When is painting not preparation for exhibiting? I need to paint more, I know, but that is my problem, and I do better when I sell, believe me. From artist Erwin Rosenhaus.
I remember asking her, Claire, why aren't you going back to doing more sculpture. She'd do a piece now and then, but nowhere near the intensity with which she approached doing so beforehand. And she kind of put it to me in an interesting way. She said, well, you know, my contemporaries, I guess most of them were male, as you mentioned before, all went on and their skills evolved while I was busy having children. And that I feel going back now and working alongside them, it makes me feel inadequate because they have evolved and I've kind of stood still.
She also had a husband in Italy that she didn't like to talk about. So I think she might associate her time in Italy with that man.
Yeah.
And not want to talk about it for that reason.
Yeah, I remember when I think Mom said that Grandma had told them about that. But I really think when I found out about it during my genealogy research, I was totally surprised. And I've been trying over the last couple of years, trying to put together the timeline of, from her, college work to her, Brooklyn Museum work to her and her Skowhegan, then over to Italy, and then there's a year and a half with all the trying to match it up with all the correspondence and the letters to all the other artists and her friends while she was in Italy, which stops immediately upon her getting married to that guy from Greece.
In learning more about my grandmother's past, I was able to get in touch with a painter living in Spain. She was my grandmother's best friend while they lived in Italy.
Am I in?
Yeah.
In the shot?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm nervous to call. I'm just gonna say, stop looking. I'm stressed out. Okay. She also doesn't know that you're here, but I'll just tell her when she picks up.
Okay, should I put this stuff away? Is this in the frame?
I mean, it's up to you. I don't care.
I don't see it.
Mariam. Oh,
Yes.
my God.
Hi.
I wondered about her. Yes. We for some reason, up until the point that we did keep in touch. I think I knew that she had divorced her Greek husband. I wasn't sure whether they had married or not. I think they were. And then I didn't hear from her very much. But then again, we went in different directions.
Do you happen to remember anything about her Greek husband?
Excuse me?
Do you remember her Greek husband at all?
A very bad memory. I didn't like him at all.
Yeah.
And I even had a confrontation with him. He was the only person in my life that I slapped, and I gave him a slap on his face.
You slapped him?
I slapped him. I was angry at him.
Why?
Because he made insulting remarks about Claire.
Ooh.
And, she didn't deserve that. He was the one who deserved something, So I just couldn't. I never did that with it. I'm not an aggressive person, but I couldn't stand that.
I point blank asked her, so she would have had to lie
You asked her what?
When, Jen?
if she had ever been divorced.
Why would you even think of that?
So the story was, I was complaining about something horrible was happening in my life, and I was, my life sucks. And she's like, Jane, anything that you could possibly go through in life, I've already been through it. I'm like, no way, Mom. You were never divorced. And she said, yes, I was. That's how I found out.
Just like that.
That's exactly how I found out.
She did not want to be alone, yet she liked being alone.
She was a total loner.
I know.
But maybe she really wanted to have a family.
I think a lot about my grandma's hands and the way they represent her physical and emotional strength. I think of Grandma's hands when she made art, digging her fingers into cold clay or hammering away at a large block of marble. Grandma's hands represent strength. Strength when she started a family, when she hugged her children and grandchildren, when she hugged me. She was a strong woman creating art and raising a family in a world that continuously challenged her. And that's how I think that she influenced the world.